BJ Mafia, what's poppin'? The Jacksonville Jaguars will travel down to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers in a Week 16 matchup from Duval County to Hillsborough County. Big shout out to Raymond James Stadium. I've worked a couple of college football games there, covering USF. It's a beautiful stadium. I got a lot of love for the city of Tampa, but of course, I'm always gonna show hometown love to my city and my team. Always first and foremost. This is a big game, I think, for both teams, as they've got a lot on the line for this game. The Jaguars are now coming off of 3 consecutive losses in a row. All the teams in the AFC North, after they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Baltimore Ravens, the Jaguars are going to be looking to get back on track this week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're coming off 3 consecutive wins. They sit number 1 in the NFC South as of right now, especially with the Saints' loss last night to the Los Angeles Rams, and the Buccaneers have a very, very favorable schedule the rest of the way. They've got the Jaguars this week, followed up by the Saints and the Panthers. They're looking to make it 6 wins in a row. They're looking to close out this season 10-7 and to remain that number 1 team in the NFC South. Both teams have a lot of implications on the line. So let's go ahead and talk about this game. Now, before we actually get into this preview video, if you guys please could, go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Jags fans, Buccaneers fans, let's actually go ahead and talk some football in today's video. Now let's kind of start with the injury report and really talk about what we're looking for with this matchup. The Jaguars are stacked up in terms of the injury report. The Buccaneers, they're looking pretty clean. I know Chris Godwin did not practice yesterday with his knee, but I think that was more so due to rest. Otherwise, a majority of their guys were full participants in practice. When you look at the Jaguars, the most notable injuries obviously going to come with number 16 quarterback at the helm, William Trevor Lawrence, and this guy is an alien. Doug Peterson said this morning, as I'm recording this video, that Trevor Lawrence will be practicing today after he was a DNP the last 2 days on Wednesday and Thursday. Speaking of DNPs, Zay Jones, with his knee and his hamstring, he was also non-participant in practice. I don't expect him to play this week. He's been in and out of the lineup all season, but Trevor Lawrence, back to him really quickly, dealing with that concussion, dealing with that ankle sprain. We saw him play those last 2 weeks on the ankle, but with the concussion, he's going to have to clear concussion protocol. We'll get into him and CJ Beathard a little bit later on in the video, but that's the big injuries. Talking about the Jaguars staying with their injuries on the offensive side, Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little, the Jaguars need all the help that they can get on the offensive side of the ball, especially when you talk about injuries. The offensive line has been porous all season long. They desperately need those guys there. And then flipping it over to the defense for the injuries, Tyson Campbell and Andre Cisco both missed last week's game versus the Ravens. They are going to probably be playing in this game, I would expect, after they were limited participants in practice these last couple of days. I think the Jaguars desperately need Cisco and Tyson Campbell back out there on the secondary, especially when you talk about guys like Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, who can wreak havoc in the secondary in terms of those matchups. Now, really moving off of the injury report, I actually want to talk about Tampa Bay and this offense first and foremost. Todd Bowles now obviously has the reins of this team as a whole, even though he's a defensive-minded coach. But Baker Mayfield is a guy, for me personally, since coming into the league, probably still to this moment, I've never been a fan of. Not a huge fan of his game. I don't think he's been really all that great. He obviously has not lived up to the hype as the number 1 overall pick, but he's now kind of found himself a home in Tampa Bay, and he's played exceptional this season. He is flying under the radar as one of the most productive quarterbacks in the game of football this season. 3,300 yards, 24 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and this Tampa Bay team could very well be a 10-win team in Baker's first year in Tampa Bay. This is very surprising to me. I did not expect this from Todd Bowles and this team, even with the weapons that they have on the outside. Tampa Bay's offense still ranks bottom in the league in total yards per game, passing yards per game, rushing yards per game, and passing offense. They are one of the best pass blocking offensive lines in the game of football, led by Tristan Wirfs. They do a great job of keeping Baker Mayfield up and clean, but still, This Tampa Bay offense is towards the bottom of the league in a lot of statistical categories, yet they still find a way to go out there and win games, and that is a credit to Baker Mayfield and the weapons that he has on the outside. You're going to talk about Mike Evans, obviously a future first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest wide receivers of this generation that does not get talked about enough. Chris Godwin's on pace for another 1,000-yard season. And then you look at second-year back Rachaad White, who's been exceptionally good. He's done a great job getting out of the backfield and really getting in between the tackles. I think he can cause a lot of problems for the Jaguars defense, even though the Jaguars do a very good job in terms of run defense. This Baker Mayfield-led offense does have a lot of weapons, and I'm thoroughly surprised with the job that they've done this season. Now, really talking about that Buccaneers offense versus that Jaguars defense, I think this is where the matchup is going to be won this game in the trenches, because Tristan Wirfs does lead that offensive line for the Buccaneers, but Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker have been wreaking havoc in the backfield all season long. I think if you can get Andre Cisco and Tyson Campbell back into the secondary, that can provide a little bit more stability there, having Rayshon Jenkins and then also Darius Williams on the opposite sides. And then you have Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker coming off of the edges. If they can collapse the pocket and really get some good push, because we know the interior of the defensive line for the Jaguars has not done a great job with Devon Hamilton and Roy Robertson Harris. Having those guys on the edges help collapse the pocket and really help keep Baker Mayfield contained, because he's not a very mobile and athletic quarterback. You can do a good job of getting to him and really creating some pressure. You have to get back there and create that pressure if you're Mike Caldwell in this defense, who is ranked 31st, so second worst in the NFL during this 3-game losing streak for the Jaguars in total yards per game. They're allowing over 400 yards per game to their opponents during this 3-game losing streak. That has to change versus a Buccaneers offense that can be explosive at any given moment. And last thing I want to say about this Jaguars defense is I think that this is going to be a big Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd game. I think Devin Lloyd's going to eat up in the middle of the field, and I think you're going to see Trayvon Walker win a lot of his matchups on the one-on-one out there on the edge. Keep an eye out for that. Now really getting into the big headline with all of this game. Who's going to play quarterback for the Jaguars? Is it going to be Trevor Lawrence? Is it going to be CJ Beathard? Let's kind of talk about a little bit of both. Trevor Lawrence has never missed a game due to injury throughout his entire football career, from Cartersville High School football to Clemson, and for playing in the NFL for the Jaguars. He has yet to miss a game due to injury. He only missed 2 games due to illness back at Clemson, but otherwise this guy's a freak of nature, and this guy wants to put it out there on the line for his teammates. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to play this Sunday, if you ask me, on Christmas Eve. I think he wants to get this Jaguars team back on top, and this Jaguars team cannot afford to lose a game. They control their own destiny in the AFC South as they lead the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans right now. They win out these next 3 games, they are guaranteed to win the division and to, at bare minimum, be a top 4 seed in the AFC. I think Trevor Lawrence goes out there, and regardless of how healthy he is, even if he passes concussion protocol, which obviously he will, still depending on his ankle, I think Trevor Lawrence goes out there and I think he plays this game. And honestly, with the offensive line, if we get Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little back, that's going to make me feel a lot better about the health and the safety of my franchise quarterback. But we know Trevor Lawrence to be a dog. He's a competitor, and that's the competitive nature he has instilled in him. I do think he will go out there and play. But if Trevor Lawrence does not play, I think CJ Beathard is still a very capable NFL veteran backup who can go out there and win you some games. He's got to be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the game of football. You take a look at Gardner Minshew, who obviously is thrusted into a starting role with no Anthony Richardson, but I think he's in that conversation. Cooper Rush, there's a handful of guys out there I could probably name. Teddy Bridgewater too. I think CJ Beathard's a very serviceable backup quarterback, and I think he can get the job done. You're going to have to lean a lot on Travis Etienne in this game, with the health and the status of Trevor Lawrence up in the air, and with CJ Beathard possibly being the starting quarterback. Travis Etienne is going to have to be the focal point of this offense. You're going to have to get him the ball out in space. We know the interior of the offensive line, especially with Vita Vea on the other side. You're not going to be able to run the ball up the middle. You're not going to have a lot of lanes through the A and B gap. You're going to have to find creative ways, press Taylor, to get Travis Etienne the ball in space. I don't like this to be a Calvin Ridley game. Maybe I'll eat my words. I don't think Ridley goes out there and has a great game. When you talk about guys like Winfield Jr., Carlton Davis, Jamal Dean, and a handful of others in the secondary for Tampa Bay, I like Parker Washington and I like Jamal Agnew to go out there and have another productive game in terms of the targets at least, regardless if it's Zay Jones out with injury and Trevor Lawrence or CJ Beathard out there at quarterback. You're going to have to get the ball out timely and quick in this game because Tampa Bay's defense can get home to the quarterback, and they can very much do that with Vita Vea, with Devin White, with Shaquille Barrett, etc. Now, Tampa Bay is favored in this game, barely, by a point, but I do think this is the game that the Jaguars find themselves getting back into the win column. They desperately need this win. It feels like this team's kind of fallen off the train tracks a little bit. And just when you least expect the Jaguars to go out there and get a win because they're not favored and the Jaguars are not playing their best football, they need to win this game. They need to win the next 3 games to win the AFC South. And they don't just need to squeak into the playoffs. They need to streak into the playoffs. Jacksonville desperately needs this win. A lot of Jags fans are going to be traveling to Tampa for this game. I wish I could be there. Unfortunately, it's on Christmas Eve, so I'm going to be back home in Jacksonville with my family. But any Jags fans traveling to this game, any Buccaneers fans that are going to be this game, please have a good time, be safe, and I think Jacksonville ultimately gets this win. I'm going to say 27-23. Jacksonville comes out on top in Week 16. Jaguar fans and Buccaneers fans, if you guys enjoyed today's video, please go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jags content that I do here on YouTube. And like I said, make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Jags fans, thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, and like always, let's go Jags.